to you, just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. If you want me to take over, just give me the green light, just give me the green light. If you want me to get close to you, just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. If you want me to take over, just give me the green light, just give me a sign, just give me the green light.
If you want me to get close to you, just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. If you want me to take over, just give me the green light, just give me a sign. If you want me to get close to you, just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. If you want me to take over, just give me the green light, just give me the green light.
If you want me to get close to you, just tell me what to do, tell me what to do. If you want me to take over, just give me the green light, just give me the green light.
If you want me to get close to you, just tell me what to do.
What's up, Dust?
Tell me what to do.
Long time no see.
If you want me to take over, just give me the green light.
What inspired this?
The green light.
I have time now. I have time to do this. Got a new job. I only work 180 days a year. I'm just checking over everything real quick. Time. Yeah. Can we I don't know, maybe pass a law where we get 30 hours in a day? Something like that. Sweet. I'm gonna leave that on a little bit in the background while I check some things. All my buttons. Two seven. Sweet. So I'm changing up the strategy. I'm gonna do more React content too, because that's just what I enjoy. I find myself a lot just watching YouTube, and wanting to talk to people about it, or watching other stuff. I don't know if you know this about me, Dusk, but I like. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm one of those weird politics nerds. I've followed politics since I was a child, literal child. Not that that's all I'm going to be doing, but I enjoy that. Also, on the stream schedule, I got Science Sundays. This is something I'm going to start doing, which is I'm going to do science React content, and then I have a 3D printing workshop that we're going to be live streaming in. What'd you learn? Why? Is Twitch gonna die? I do have a YouTube channel. As a matter of fact, I just set it up to take my VODs and auto-upload them to my YouTube channel by the same name. Oh, oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. There we go. All right. Yeah, I love politics. As a matter of fact, every year I volunteer doing something in elections here in La Plata County. I go out of my way to spend time doing it. For instance, this election on Tuesday, I did vote counting here at the clerk's office. Yeah, I think so too. I think I'm gonna be doing like a lot of like clipping, a lot of like, you know, I think uploading the VOD is just getting it in two places, and then once I do that, then I can, you know, clip short content, short form stuff. I'm just better off the bat at making long form content, and then I got to figure out how to make short form content from that. Sweet. I'm gonna turn the music off and watch some videos like I normally do after work. Yeah. Oh, dude, the other thing specifically with you is I totally got your Steam message like a week after you sent it, and I felt bad, so sorry about that. I think you saw me playing Civ. I was in a Civ hole. I want to know about this.
The Marvel superhero Daredevil is the story of a mild-mannered lawyer named Matt Murdock who is blind but can see through the power of echolocation. I'm sorry, shouldn't this be Batman's thing?
I like Joe Scott.
There's nobody over there. Anyway, in the comics and the TV shows, it gives him a supernatural ability to perceive the world around him, and he uses that to fight crime and to hook up with She-Hulk. Well done, sir. Well, it might sound impossible to believe, but this is an actual thing that some blind people can do. Maybe
I
not
heard
the
about this.
fighting crime and She-Hulk stuff,
like
but the echolocation, yeah. One great example is Daniel Kish. This is a guy who makes clicking sounds with his tongue when he's walking around or with a cane, and he kind of uses what he hears coming back to him to interpret the space around him. He can even ride a bike and navigate through his neighborhood this way. And this isn't just some like superhuman ability that only he can do. He actually teaches this to blind children.
Yeah, the thing about Civ is I've never played multiplayer.
And this, of course, is a method of seeing that many animal species use,
it's not
like
a good
the aforementioned bat.
experience.
Animals definitely have a different way of perceiving the world.
So if you have like,
and we've kind of learned over the years how to use their abilities to heighten our own perception. So today, let's take a look at some of the weirdest animal senses that you just don't have.
That's also like my ADHD.
You know, sometimes I get why some people hate science.
I leave people on red all the time. I always feel bad.
I get it, because it's constantly revealing things that we can't see and reminding us of how narrow our perception is.
But yeah, that's my deal is like, I never have a good experience playing multiplayer. I guess there's not like a good like public lobby interface, which makes sense, since the games, even on the online speed, can last like pretty long. But
from small things like bacteria and viruses and atoms to gigantic things like galaxies and dark matter and your mom. The fact is, we can see, hear, touch, sense, smell, whatever, just a fraction of the world around us. Visible light is the most obvious answer. You know, we know that light is just a small part of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, right? But the narrowness of that spectrum is even more amazing when you think about it, because technically the size of the wavelengths in the electromagnetic spectrum, they go from infinitely small to infinitely huge. And out of that infinity, the range of what we can see is only 320 nanometers wide. Luckily, we got this here gelatinous blob that can brainificate real good, and we've been able to construct instruments that go beyond our sense of sight as well as our other senses to give us a more complete picture of the world. But many animal species in the world don't need to brainificate. They can sensificate things that we can't. Here's some of the weirdest examples. Since we've already been talking about it, let's start with echolocation. Bats are famous for it, as well as dolphins and other toothed whales who produce sounds to help them navigate. And these sounds are loud. Like, they have to travel really long distances and carry enough energy to bounce all the way back to the animal and still be heard. Heard by a sense of hearing that's obviously very, very, very sensitive.
You ever watch
that?
You ever watch Potato McWhiskey? He occasionally does live streams with like multiplayer. And yeah, they're like, I think the shortest one I've watched is like 3 hours or something. That was like a 2v2. I love Potato. He's awesome. I watched his Victoria playthrough that he just did, Victoria 3. It looks so good, but I think that game would break my brain. I'll get into it eventually, though.
It actually raises a really interesting question. How can they make such loud sounds mere centimeters, even millimeters away from these really sensitive ears without actually hurting them? Well, bats, anyway, it turns out,
always wonder that, actually.
they actually have a mute button in their inner ear. It's a muscle that pushes against one of the inner ear bones to keep it from vibrating when it chirps. Thus protected, they're able to pinpoint prey from a distance of up to 10 meters. Sperm whales do the same thing, but their echolocation range is closer to 500 meters. Narwhals, that are basically a toothed whale with one really, really long tooth, they can actually echolocate vertically to find open water in regions that are covered with ice. This is important because they have to surface so that they can breathe. Echolocation can provide a sort of X-ray vision as well, especially underwater. As I'm sure you've heard your whole life, we are 60-something% water, so if a dolphin's echolocation signals are traveling through water, then they can travel through you. A little bit. Dolphins use this trick to find fish that are hiding in loose sand, but I think the craziest thing about dolphin echolocation is that they might be kind of telepathic. There's a long-standing theory that dolphins can recreate the images they see with their echolocation using their own mouth clicks and pulses. If that's true, they might be able to transmit images to another dolphin. At this point, the theory is highly speculative. It's kind of hard to brain scan one dolphin, let alone two.
Wow.
But they have been observed communicating with each other using the same vocalizations they echolocate with, so maybe? But seriously, how cool is that? I mean, like, instead of having to describe something that you saw with, words or trying to draw it to somebody, you could just blast sounds at someone and they just see it. And who knows, maybe one day we could brainificate a device that would be able to decipher their clicks into a hologram or something that we could see. That'd be cool. So if echolocation is seeing with sound, tremor sense might be hearing with touch. So I mentioned the ability of elephants to communicate with low-frequency vibrations before. The more highbrow of you might recall my video about the brown note. Well, what I didn't catch in my research way back then was that elephants can actually hear these vibrations through their feet. As we all know, sound waves travel faster through solids than through air. So while elephant calls can travel great distances over the air, they can travel even further and faster through the ground. So yeah, elephants developed really sensitive feet that can hear through the ground. Yeah,
That's
researchers
crazy.
have actually seen elephants kind of striking poses that allow for better tactile listening. They'll sort of pause and then sometimes raise a leg or touch a leg or a toe to the ground just for a moment to kind of listen. And this gives them a little extra time to prepare for a threat. For example, if they hear another elephant warn of a predator with their ears, they'll just flee and get out of there because they know they don't have much time. But if that warning comes through the dirt, they'll figure that they've got a little bit of extra time and just kind of huddle close together instead. The tremor sense works through clusters of specialized nerves around the feet. These are processed in the same parts of the brain that process touch, but some of the vibrations are also carried all the way through the skeletal system to the inner ear, which processes it as sound. This is kind of how bone-conducting headphones work, except it's conducting all the way from your feet. And there are some correlations that can be found in the brains of deaf and deaf-blind people. Deaf-blind people have the ability to sort of hear finger movements because their brains have moved that processing to the auditory module of the brain. And because you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, elephants use this form of communication to find mates.
No.
Sort of an underground tremor-based Tinder. Trembler? Sounds like a serial killer dating app. Next up is heat sense. So obviously we can all sense heat. One of the very first things that any parent teaches a kid is not to touch a hot stove. Or in my case, it's a lesson that you learn on your own. Once. Well, the reason that we feel heat is because the signals that travel through ion channels in our nerves. Now, we have different channels for different sensations, and one heat sensing channel
Sorry,
that
I'm
we
trying to
have is
figure out
called
how to pop chat
TRPV1.
out.
By the way, the reason that we feel
I can put
heat
it on
when we
screen.
eat chili peppers and that kind of thing is because the capsaicin in the chili peppers activate that same pathway, that TRPV1 pathway. And
Right,
if you've
yeah.
ever wondered why
I wonder
mint
how
feels
hot this is.
cold, it's because it activates a different receptor called TRPV8.
My partner, she yells at me all the
TRPV8,
time.
as you
She's
might
like,
have guessed, detects
why
cold.
are you touching that pot?
So there you go.
I'm like,
And these
I just
ion
wanted to see
channels
if it
do
was
more than
hot.
just send signals
The
to the
fire
brain. They
is
can
on
also
it.
activate your immune system. In fact, some studies have shown that activating that TRPV1 channel with capsaicin can actually kind of prime your immune system to fight cancer. It's complicated, and not all the studies agree, but it does hint at some more health benefits of spicy foods, which is pretty cool. Anyway, when it comes to sensing heat, the human TRPV1
that's
channels
true,
have a
'cause
threshold
I
of
eat
43
so much
degrees
spicy
Celsius,
food.
or 109 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, that's useful for preventing burns, but animals with a more precise heat sense find it even more useful. Take vampire bats, for instance. They have extra sensitive TRPV1 receptors in their nose. Those activate at 30 degrees Celsius. This is cooler than the temperature of blood. What this means is that they can literally see blood vessels underneath the skin. It's kind of like a natural stud finder. Blood finder.
There we go. Figured out how to pop chat.
Certain snakes
Wish I
also
could make
use
it
heat sensing to find
transparent.
food. Vipers, pythons, and boas have pits in their faces that are equipped with ion channels to map thermal radiation, basically allowing them to see in the dark. And their TRPV1 ion channels can detect temperatures of 28 degrees Celsius and higher. They basically have predator vision, which is appropriate because they
I'll
are
figure that out
predators. But
eventually.
hey, now you know how to be invisible to a snake. Mud bath. Now for a really cool one, electrosensing. Electric shocks are annoying to human beings mostly, but
Yeah,
some
should
animals use
probably
electricity to
just,
see in ways that we can't. Sharks are a famous
Probably just
example.
worried about you,
In
man.
1935, a scientist observed a
like
shark
my
reacting
partner is.
negatively to a rusty wire. This reaction occurred even when the shark was blindfolded, which, by the way, apparently, you can blindfold sharks. Anyway, a biologist and physicist named Adrianus Kalman worked out that sharks and other animals, like fish,
Ooh, I'm getting some very bad lag.
can actually sense electromagnetic fields.
Oh,
This sense was eventually pinned down to these organs in their snout called ampullae of Lorenzini. These are basically pores filled with a kind of jelly, and then nerves in those pores respond to changes in electrical potential, which then helps them to find prey in murky water. The Olm salamander does this in a similar way. Olms are essentially blind, so they just use electrosensing to locate obstacles in their environment. Another animal that uses electrosensing is the
Sorry to
duck-billed
miss chat.
platypus, because of course it does. Just throw that on the massive pile of weird things around the platypus. And finally, bees are thought to be able to sense the electrical fields of flowers. Yeah, bees can tell the difference between real flowers and fake flowers because of their electrical charge, and they can also make a flower positively charged, which kind of works as a dinner bell for other bees. Bees, by the way, are the first animal that scientists have noticed that have used electrosense
I
in
thought they
dry
always
air.
just tried to take the
All the other
pollen.
animals that we're talking about here are underwater, or in areas of high humidity at the very least. And some think that this opens the door to other non-bee insects to have a similar sense, but research is ongoing. And while we're talking
Really?
about bees, another cool thing they can do is they have
If
built-in
humans
natural
are that
compasses.
sensitive to
Bees
rain,
can orient
that makes
themselves.
a lot of sense because I've always felt like I can smell rain like hours before it rains. Like just personally. It does, that would make sense.
of the Earth's magnetic field thanks to granules of iron in their abdomens. This gives them the ability to accurately navigate up to 12 kilometers from the hive. The blind salamander I mentioned earlier can also orient itself to the Earth's magnetic field. Some bacteria can too. And then there's the birds. Some bird species migrate
birds.
thousands of miles every year. The bar-tailed godwit, for instance, it travels 30,000 kilometers in a trip that takes it from Alaska to New Zealand and back. So, like, how? How do they navigate that? This gets weird. There are some studies that are suggesting that they do it through quantum entanglement.
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay, so bear with me here. There's a type of protein
I'll
called a
bear with you,
cryptochrome. And cryptochromes are known to create pairs of entangled particles when it interacts with light. Well, when they create these particles, the spin state of these particles is affected by magnetic fields. And they found several types of cryptochromes in the eyes of birds. So, in theory, the Earth's
Okay.
electromagnetic fields could possibly impact the spin state of these entangled pairs, and those changes could be detected by the retinal nerves, which would allow the birds to effectively see the Earth's magnetic fields. I imagine it would be like seeing a superhighway in the
that would
sky
be
that's made up of
cool,
auroras
dude.
all the time. What's even crazier is that human eyes contain more than enough cryptochrome to actually do this ourselves. What we lack is the neural hardware to interpret these magnetic effects, and possibly a chemical that activates the cryptochrome. But it's thought that birds do have that, and yeah, it's still a bit speculative, but it's an interesting answer to a big natural mystery. Okay, we know that dogs have a great sense of smell, but it turns out that dogs can actually diagnose disease.
It literally draws a line.
Dogs have 5 times as many olfactory receptors as we do, and their brains have 40 times the smell processing power. And this is why dogs can be trained to sniff out scent trails, bomb materials, a bag of weed stuffed away down your backpack. Or so I'm told. Well, since 1989, scientists have been studying the ability of dogs to smell cancer.
Yeah, dude.
They've been able to correctly detect everything from skin, lung, and other cancers from urine samples, and they can also smell cancer on a patient's breath.
Implant
the rates of detection tend to vary from study to study, but they're routinely above the 50% that you would expect if it was random chance. An August 2021 study reported lung cancer detection rates of 78% from breath and 87.8% from urine. When breath and urine samples were used together, the sniffer dogs had a 97.6% detection rate. According to a research group working on this called In Situ, training dogs to detect cancer is actually pretty complicated because the smells are made up of around like 4,000 volatile organic compounds compared to, maybe 1 or 2 that a bomb sniffing dog is to pick up. Studies are still ongoing. Dogs aren't like used as diagnostic tools in hospitals just yet because, CT scans are still way more accurate and, well, let's just be honest, there's more money to be made with it. In Situ recommends teams of 5 highly trained dogs to detect cancer. I'm not sure if the whole team of highly trained dogs would cost less than a CT scan, but well, maybe. I find this really interesting, but I'm not really sure exactly, like how it would work in practice. I mean, if you're at the point that you're, going to the doctor because you're worried you might have cancer, you're probably going to want a definite answer at that point more than the word of a dog. But if we can isolate and detect some of the chemicals that dogs are responding to, we might be able to include smell samples as part of a regular physical, to just increase the chance of catching diseases before the symptoms show up. There's actually a video on the way on this exact topic. It's a thing that's in the works, and no, it's really, really cool. So
early
the fact that dogs can smell cancer, super interesting. And last on our list, we come to an animal with the best sense of taste in the entire animal kingdom. And the reason it has such an amazing sense of taste is because it basically tastes with its whole body. The answer? A catfish.
What?
Catfish. Yeah, I really didn't expect that one when I started this. A catfish is basically a giant tongue with fins. Its body is covered with 175,000 chemoreceptors, which are basically taste buds. For comparison, you have around 10,000 on your tongue. What it doesn't have all over its body are scales, which is kind of weird for a fish, but catfish is a weird animal. The chemoreceptors are especially packed into those whiskers that give it its name. Those whiskers are actually called barbels, by the way, which makes a lot less sense to me than whiskers, but whatever. It uses these barbels and the chemoreceptors all over its body to navigate and hunt down live prey in murky water where there's not much light. Catfish have a reputation as being carrion eaters, but they mostly eat live prey, like insects and small fish. And sometimes people. From 1998 to 2008, there were reports out of India of a man-eating catfish. The legend has it that the fish got a taste for human flesh after consuming a body that was leftover remains from a seaside funeral pyre, but who knows? I mean, maybe it got a taste from just sniffing somebody's leg when they were wading through the water. Either way, there are 3 known cases with eyewitnesses of people getting dragged into the water by a giant catfish, and their remains were never found.
Clown on stream.
That is a thing that happened. Siri, cancel my noodling trip.
What?
Anyway, there are 3 known cases with eyewitnesses of people getting dragged into the water by a giant catfish, and their remains were never found. That is a thing that happened. Siri, cancel my noodling trip. Okay, so all this is cool, but what does that mean to us? How can we use these super senses to our advantage? Well, I talked about the cancer-sniffing dogs, but there are other things scientists are using, like echolocation to find cracks in structural beams. Yeah, finding hairline cracks in the supports of an oil rig is especially challenging. Not only are the cracks underwater, they're usually buried in sand. So yeah, using the example of dolphins hunting fish in the sand, they use echolocation to find fractures that they otherwise wouldn't be able to see. The elephant's ability to hear tremors has possible applications for hearing aids. Yeah, remember how elephants hear partially by bone conduction? Well, modeling elephant ear bones could help improve the clarity of hearing aids that kind of work in a similar way. Heat-sensing ion channels are being studied for pain.
I tried some bone conduction headphones, and they were actually, really good. Kind of feels like they had, a hype moment, right before the pandemic. And then, things got weird. But I think they're like an underrated technology because like we got hearing aids and stuff now. It's crazy.
Pain relief. We're actually figuring out how to chemically block those signals thanks to studying the heat pits on snakes. And finally, the tasting powers of catfish have been studied for their insight into animal behavior, especially regarding food. Kind of sounds strange, but studying catfish has actually led to a greater understanding of how different tastes encourage animals and humans to eat a healthy diet. In a way, we're using animal super senses to amplify our own senses, just like all the instruments we've created over the years. I love these stories because it just shows that you never know where a breakthrough is going to come from. Like you always hear about these studies where somebody's trying to figure out if snails prefer Mountain Dew or Sprite or something, random like that, and you're always like, why are people studying this? This is why, because there's always something that you can learn in it, and you never know what problem that's going to fix. And I, for one, think that's pretty cool. Any I missed? Are there any animal senses that you know about that I didn't cover here? Talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And hey, you know what would be a really great superpower? The ability to not get hacked. You could be like a digital daredevil, just kicking the crap out of malware and viruses without even looking. Well, you can be exactly that with today's sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN works
Wonderful ad pivot.
by creating a virtual private network that hides your IP address by tricking the network into thinking that you're somewhere else.
Okay. I want to check election stuff locally. Wow, look how close this is. Can I zoom? That is so, oh my God, that is so close. Last night when I went to sleep, it was like 68 votes or something. It said 99% reporting though, so I don't know why it says 98 now. Wish I could get a precinct view. Oh well. Just wanted to check it out. Where are we at? 218 majority. Still need 7. Alright. Joe Scott's a cool guy. He puts out good content. Ugh. I don't want to watch cringe content on stream. I'm scared how I'll react. I will eventually, though. I haven't watched this John Oliver while we're on the election stuff. He has a great writing team. I mean, he's good too, but his writing team is awesome. What is this? I don't know. It's been an hour. Let's play some games. What do we want to play? Call of Duty? Okay. It'll probably crash. Let me get it set up. Are you for serious right now? Driver updates? Hang on. The one thing I didn't check before I went live. Hang on. Is this gonna make me restart my PC? If it is, I'll just play on these drivers. I also don't want to crash though, because I've been getting, I don't know, like a crash an hour playing this, even on like performance settings. in the chat? Oh. Log in. Installing. Sorry, chat. I know there's at least one of you here. We will. We'll Express installation. Install. We'll do one more React while it installs. We do need to talk about Hungry. That's an hour though. All right, we'll start it.
Sweet hams, it's me. It's your Cody. You want to do a news? Well, let me look and see what we got. Here is some news. Looks like someone wrote, talk about the nation of Hungary in peanut butter? I really hope it's peanut butter. Well, heck, this show does need to be a bit more worldly, I guess. I was going to talk about the midterms, of which I definitely know the results, because we record these
very funny
live. But sure, Hungary. Why not?
Did someone say the nation of Hungary? Because that is exactly what this show needs.
Okay, hi, yes, I just said that. I am so concerned that you agree.
Listen, blank eyes. Everyone is talking about Hungary. Hungary features stunning architecture, vital folk art, thermal spas, and Europe's most exciting capital after dark. I took that sentence from the Lonely Planet